welcome back. This is Brighter Morning with Bo, and I am Bo Tiwari. You're watching on MCTV, Multicultural TV in Trinidad and Tobago and the region. Let us welcome Dr. Alan Sammy now, Chairman of the corporation Penal-Debe, and let's talk to him. Good morning, Dr. Sammy. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for having me on the program.
Yes, of course. You've been in the politics for a long time in one way or the other, and you are now in local government and have been there for, in this round, you've been there for what, about 5 years?
Well, since 1990, since 2016 in this round.
Yeah, in this round from 2016, so you've been there nearly 5 years now, right?
And prior to that, I had been around 4 years in San Fernando and 7 years in Penal-Debe.
Yes, I know. Yeah, and local government is very familiar to you. And you've always been a hard worker. I know that. Whatever you're doing, whether it's cricket, whether it's Susulan, whether it's the politics, whether it's local government, whatever you are given to do, you work very hard. And I want to say that I know that for a fact because you are a no-nonsense person. You like to have your fun and so on, but you are a diligent person in whatever you do. How have you found this last local government experience? You can talk about the whole period. From 2016 then. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been exceedingly difficult. In fact, everything seems to be deteriorating, and it has been compounded by COVID. However, I think COVID is being used as an excuse by the seniors, or upstairs as I like to say, which is central government, to squeeze local government. Trinidad, as you know, has 524 communities, which are divided into 14 municipal regions. So we are one of 14. There are 9 regional corporations and the other 5 are city or towns. We represent 33 communities, and these communities have been defined by the Central Statistical Office. It means that 33 communities in Penal-Debe expect the delivery of certain goods and services. And our inability to do it over the past few years has resulted in a lot of anger and frustration by people. And of course, we are blamed squarely for the inability to deliver. I am not saying we are perfect from a managerial point of view. I think all municipalities are a work in progress. We make mistakes like everybody else, but we work assiduously to ensure that at least the landscape is good physically and even socially.
You say you're being squeezed by central government. Explain what that means so ordinary people understand and I understand.
All right. Actually, I can give you very easily. I don't like to go back too far because it's not meant to be purely political. But in 2014-15, the allocation to Penal-Debe for what is called recurrent, as distinct from developing box drains and so on, was $90 million for one calendar year. Last year we got $63 million. Now, that's a big difference. And yet, a number of things have changed on the landscape. There are more people, for example, more roads that we have responsibility for. We have more goods and services to deliver to people. Water, trucking, and so on has become very acute. So we have less money, and I talk about millions of dollars less over the past 6 years to deliver more goods and services to the people. Therefore, it takes a lot of management skill. We, for example, have 10 vacancies. Now, it is not that people are not acting in them, and I'm talking about senior vacancies. I am talking about things like the planning officer, all the way up to the administrative 2 officer, and all the people in between, the road officers and so on. Now, if you don't have senior people who in turn manage the staff, then they cannot in turn deliver to the people what the expectations are. So we don't have money last year or this year to buy diesel for 3 or 4 days. People actually had to take out of their pockets. I know councils who did that. So you can't buy diesel. So therefore, if there is material, you can't go out and patch potholes, or you can't take the backhoe out or the excavator out to clean a drain. And those are some of the impacts that you would have. And there are several examples like that.
How much money you have gotten on average? Well, first of all, how much money you got this year for development works? And how much on average you got for the last 5 years, let's say?
For what is called DP, we get anywhere between 10 and 12 million. Now this year,
this is $12
12 million.
For 12 months for 33 communities.
That is correct, and that has to do an incredible lot of things. I mean, apart from the roads and bridges and so on, which are the principal areas of expenditure, you also do cemeteries, abattoirs. You buy things like vehicles. All the major kinds of procurement is done with that money. Now, I want the public to be aware of the difference between allocation and the actual release. So you will see on paper, last year, for example, we got 12.3 million on allocation for development works. But the releases were actually only 10 million, so we were 2 million short. And sadly, the way the ministry works, you will be promised that there are funds. So there is something called an assurance of funds. You go ahead and you invite contractors to construct box trains and so on. And then just before the end of the financial year in September, you're told no funds are released, but the job is completed, so bills are owed. So for example, this year, the allocation is 14 million. They will say, oh, you've gone up 2 million. But out of that, over $3 million are owed for last year's work, meaning last financial year's work. So the actual take home may be closer to the region of $10 million. And with that, you have to do all the things I spoke about.
Yes, so you find yourself in each year paying debt from the last year for development works. And as a consequence, you have perhaps 50% or less of what you are actually allocated to spend, and on top of that, you get a shortfall between the allocation and the disbursement. Am I correct?
You're very correct.
All right. Let me ask something. What is the relationship between your central government, which would be the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, and the local government entity, and the relationship, let's say, between you as chairman and the minister? I mean, it seems to me that the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development must have an interest in having functional and effective local government operators. And for that to happen, there has to be some element of collaboration and appreciation and understanding of the work that has to be done. What is the nature of that relationship?
The relationship between the Honorable Minister Kazim Hussain and myself is excellent, and has been because I've known him for maybe 20 odd years. So I've known him for a very, very long time. And when I call, which is not too often, he answers, and if he can't answer, he will call me back. So the personal relationship is excellent. But what I think is missing is not him so much. He is a mere cog in a big wheel, and he therefore has to move with the times. That is to say, move with whatever his bosses tell him. And in this case, it's the Minister of Finance. So in spite of what he may do, or we believe he may do, or seek to do on our behalf, it still does not materialize in release of funds. So they have to, of course, manage a tiny budget. It has been reduced because of their inability to invest and divest, as you probably know. So there are no surplus funds. There is therefore a reduced budget. I think I accept the reality of it. The reasons behind it, of course, are different. And he has to bob and weave, and he has to do that with all the UNC corporations. And this is going on constantly. Therefore, it must go beyond personal. It has to do really with what the others are saying, what the Prime Minister is saying, what the Minister of Finance is saying, is what they are telling him. He therefore merely has to carry out instructions as I see it.
You mentioned UNC corporations. Is there a difference in the way the funds are allocated and disbursed to so-called P&M corporations versus UNC? Can you say that for a fact?
No, I have looked at the figures. They too are getting less funds. So let me start by saying, but let me go on to add, however, where they can call a minister that has machinery, for example, the Minister of Works, and say, listen, I can't make with what you have given me, so I want you to lend me your machine. Or I want you to do this or that for me. If, for example, community development has a certain program in your area and you want additional, we can't call the minister and say, listen, I need additional. But they can. And the difference is a lot of money is given to them, or if not much money, resources, by that kind of relationship where it is a phone call away. However, that cannot be right. Everybody must get in the same manner. I'm not saying it's equal, obviously. It has to be equitable.
Well,
and released in a timely fashion. And that is not happening from what I gather, because I speak to my colleagues in other corporations.
Well, let me understand this properly, though, and let your constituents and the people of Trinidad and Tobago understand as well. If you have a shortage of equipment or you don't have money to put diesel or whatever it is in your vehicles, can you call on the Ministry of Rural Development for help and support, and have you called? And secondly, can you get the Ministry of Works to collaborate with you? Because I don't see how anything can be done in this country without collaboration between the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of, between the Ministry of Works and the local government bodies. And now that you have a Ministry of Local Government, if it has, of Rural Development, if it has resources, it seems to me that that would be a partner resource that is available to you. Tell me about what is happening there from your corporation, and then do the comparison of how it works unfairly, if it works unfairly to you.
Well, we can call, we actually do call from time to time various ministries for assistance, but they themselves, I don't want to give the impression they have lots of machinery. For example, Ministry of Works Drainage Division, whom we have to call upon very often. They don't have a surplus of machines, or if they do, they're certainly not allocated in the Penal-Debe area. For example, as I'm aware that there was a large excavator that they had in the Penal-Debe area 2 years ago when we had some floods. Well, every year we have 3 floods at least. And it was moved from here because there was a flood up in the north, and they took it there, and we were equally affected. So even where you have a few resources, it's not shared equally. We often have to assist other ministries, believe it or not, because of our management. We are well managed, we have a good CEO, and our CEO is able to use whatever scarce resources are allocated in a prudent manner. So we, for example, will go in and help WASA with a backhoe to repair a hole that they have created. We have helped the Ministry of Works already with clearing a main road drain, which is their responsibility, because their piece of equipment was somewhere else. And often when we say, well, where is it? It's in a P&M controlled area, and we think something has to be wrong with that. If, for example, you have a south-based unit, and then you take the resources of this unit, which has been done in the Ministry of Works Drainage Division, and all the decisions now are made in Centeno, that can't be right. We used to have engineers, for example, in the Ministry of Works itself at one time, and they could take decisions and they can go out and clean drains and what have you. That has not been done. They moved everything out, they've put it in Centeno, and then the decision to do things, execute works, is made in Centeno, and they have to do that for 14 municipalities.
Well, as I understand it from what you are saying there, the big problem is flooding. The other big problem is the condition of the roads. The other big problem is the drainage system. And the fourth problem would be community infrastructure delivery or support that people need in addition to these that end up being a problem and have to be delivered by somebody, right? It seems to me that there are jurisdictional issues between local government, Ministry of Works, and rural development. And more than that, besides the jurisdiction issues, there are really the power and capacity issues among the three. Can you help me with that? What would
Yes, certainly.
What would be...
Let me give you...
Just 1 second, Alan. You're pretty capacious on these issues, so you can take the questions I ask you and digest and distill them and give me a decent answer. What would be the solution to this thing?
Okay, in Penal-Debe, we have 99 watercourses which are the responsibility of Penal-Debe. They are minor watercourses, big drains if you wish. And then, of course, as you know, there are two major principal rivers which flow through the Penal-Debe region. They emanate in the Princestown, Mayaro area, but they exit into the Gulf of Paria. So they go right through Penal-Debe. 60% of our 240-odd square kilometers of land is prone to flooding or at least impacted by flooding. That is to say, if you live on a little hill, because in between point A and point B is flooded. And we have a lot of that. I'm talking about 60%. Now we have 90,000 people. And 60,000 people in turn are impacted negatively when there is that excess of rainfall or the inability to drain properly. I have proposed to the state, I say, listen, you cannot do Penal-Debe or clean watercourses in Penal-Debe in isolation. You have to do it at a national integrated level where all the ministries who are responsible for watercourses are working together. And I proposed a 6-point plan. And it included things like revegetating slopes. It included earthen drains. It included, detention ponds. It included, for example, bringing all the actors, if you wish, together to work in a collaboration. Now, that will help Penal-Debe, but it will also help Princestown, it will help Port of Spain, it will help the East-West Corridor, it will help everybody. But the way it's currently done, the Ministry of Works Range Division will go in, they'll clean one stretch of watercourse, perhaps 500 meters, near to where people live, and then they will go in another area and do similarly. But meanwhile, in between has not been cleaned. It therefore means there will always be flooding. And therefore, unless we adopt that 6-point approach nationally, it's an integrated watershed management approach, yes, then the flooding will continue and people will continue to suffer. Now, I've noticed something happening. The people who you're showing now on the screen, who are impacted, they become so severely traumatized over time that that's a new phenomenon in the Penal-Debe area. People are scared, so the minute it starts to drizzle, they start to put sandbags around their doors, they start to get prepared, they get additional water and food and so on. And then they stand by and wait it out. Now, how can people continue to live with that, like that? In addition, there are millions of dollars of losses in household items as well as crops. Remember, we are a principal agricultural area too. Millions of dollars. So when, for example, an area is flooded out, maybe 50, 60 acres of crops are flooded out, the tremendous loss of income and so on is immeasurable. And that is happening day in, day out, at least 2-3 times through the year over the past 5-6 years. How can people continue to live like that? The resources of the state.
I agree with you. I empathize strongly with that. I mean, I don't know how you can continue to allow that level of human stress and distress and the perpetual occurrence of this year after year and not understand that the obligation is on the government to deal with this matter. Now, and it requires the cooperation of Ministry of Works, Ministry of Rural Development, and the local government in the area. but it also requires a national intervention and a national plan. Countries are, the solution to problems in a country are predetermined in part, I want to be careful about this, by its history and its geography. And you cannot not take into account that we have relatively substantial hills in the northern range. And if you damage the northern range, you create a problem for everybody else down below. And when the water begins to flow, it doesn't flow from south or from central, it flows from north. It comes from the north down, and unless you have an integrated strategy and plan, which involves rural development, Ministry of Local Government, which involves the local government entity in the area, and the Ministry of Works, I don't see how we could solve this problem nationally. Because today it's Penal-Debe, tomorrow is Diego Martin, all right? Today it's St. Patrick, tomorrow it is the city of Port of Spain. Today it might be some other part of Trinidad, it might be the eastern part of Trinidad, Sangre Grande, and so on, and the next day it is in Point Fortin. So we've got to have a national strategy for this. Do you agree with that? I want to take a break now after you finish, and we will come back and talk about some of the issues. What do you say to that?
I have already done a 6-point plan since 2018, which speaks to all those issues.
Yes.
And key to all of this really is the involvement of the 524 communities. The best policemen of the environment are members of a community. And when other members of the same community are in breach, they are the first to report them and saying so-and-so is dumping a tire, or so-and-so is diverting a water course, or so-and-so is backfilling. And even if it's on slope or in flat land, it has to have all of those components. And I'll gladly, after the show, send to you my 6-point plan. It's only 2 pages.
All right, and this has been sent to the Ministry of Works and Ministry of Rural Development as well?
Every minister who has some say in the decision-making has received it. They have received it more than once. I have actually said this to Minister Sinanan in person when he came down once, maybe 2 years ago. But nobody bothers. And you keep reinforcing and saying, listen, it does not require a lot of money. And people have the view that it requires a lot of money. It requires planning, and it requires the involvement of the communities. That's central to the success. And it is going to be over a period of time. So there is a short, medium, and long term. And if everyone is involved jointly, then we can keep Charlie away, as they say. And the water courses will not look like a bottling factory after there is a flood. Because when you go down to the mouth of these rivers, all you're seeing is plastic bottles. Occasionally you'll see a stove and a fridge.
Well,
but it is those things.
I'm glad you're raising that issue too, because there's a personal responsibility and community responsibility issue. And the minister has raised this from time to time, that people block up rivers, they try to extend the amount of land they have, they change water courses, and of course all of us contribute to the pollution by the things that we do. So there is that element. But I would think that if you developed an integrated plan to deal with this, that education, communication, and raising of consciousness would be a matter that would also be addressed, and this could help in the process. Let's take a break so that our advertisers can present their views, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion, Dr. Sammy.
Thank you.
Welcome to Lifetime Solutions, where you can trust your roof to us. Our services include custom fabrication, steel framing, roofing installation, on-site roll forming, roofing maintenance and services. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com. Lifetime Solutions. You can trust your roof to us. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com.
As businesses adapt to the new normal, let Magic Mist take care of your cleaning and sanitization needs with our COVID-19 BSCAI internationally certified technicians. With over 43 years of protecting the health of our nation, you can trust us to ensure your building remains safe, healthy, and functional. Give us a call today at 638-6675 or 332-5522. Magic Mist Services Limited, your total facilities management solutions provider.
Sport is in trouble. What can be done to save sports in TNT? Join host Gordon Pear on Sports Insight every Monday and Wednesday on MCTV from 4:30 p.m. as he identifies the problems, look for solutions, and points the way forward. Sports Insight, where we talk to the coaches, athletes, administrators, and of course, you, the fans, as we bring positive change through sport.
This is Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari. We're glad that you're still watching us and listening to the conversation between myself and Dr. Alan Sammy, who is the chairman of the Penal-Debe Corporation. Now, I want to play a couple of clips, Alan, and I would have you comment on those. One has to do with the situation with roads, and we have a response from the Minister of Works as well. Okay, let's look at those quickly.
That is a call of residents in Penal who have been without a supply of pipe-borne water for months. Residents from Timor Trace, Naipalia Trace, Goodman Trace and parts of Clark Road staged a protest calling on the Water and Sewage Authority to provide them with water. Councillor for Penal, Shanti Budram, said the residents are suffering and is calling on the Minister of Public Utilities to fix the problem.
People's lives matter, just like the people's lives in the East-West Corridor. People pay their water bill just like the rest of the residents in the country. Why it is that they are suffering, the residents in Timor, Naipalia, and not only here, in Penal Rock Road, in Sunrise Road, in Queenham Road, all over in the Penal and the Siparia constituency have been suffering. Is it political discrimination? Is it geographical discrimination? I am asking, please open the water. That is all the people need.
A response there from one of the ministers.
Minister of Works and Transport Rohan Sinanan said claims of geographic discrimination from the United National Congress is a strategy to make a political statement. But he said the record would show that even under the UNC government, there were 486 landslips, most of which were under their areas, and they would know that it cannot be fixed in one go.
That area, you have the southern range and the central range, and because of the soil type, and the weather pattern, landslips are inevitable. So we have continued that program. And as we speak now, we have about 80% of the landslips in the country continues to be between the southern range and the central range, mostly in the...
All right, thank you. I just want you to deal with one issue, which is the issue of political discrimination, raised by the councillor, Shanti Budram, and then responded to by the Minister of Works. Now, to me, political discrimination is an abhorrent thing. I don't think whichever government is in office should discriminate against people who don't vote for them, because the parliamentary system is based on the principle of government. That's to say, the majority will form the government, the minority will form the opposition. And all citizens are equal and are entitled to representation. I want you to talk about this issue. I know that you are a responsible man and you talk about this responsibly. So how do you respond to this issue?
Over time, I've been convinced that there is geographical discrimination. And I say it that way. Let me give you some examples. We have about 20,000 residences or residential buildings in the Penal-Debe region. A lot of our people do not have a regular supply of pipe-borne water. We have, for example, where water is turned on. And remember, we get water maybe once a week, once in every 2 weeks, depending on where you live. We don't have anything like 24/7. There are a few areas that are serviced like that, along the main roads where the mains run. But the side traces, of which there are several, they don't get water on that regularity. So that's why everybody in Penal-Debe who does not get it 24/7 has water tanks. And the biggest seller in Penal-Debe is water tanks. So you'll find storage of various capacities. I myself are not connected to the water system simply because the system doesn't reach me. And there are 612 families, or homes rather, that are similar to mine. So in the dry season, water has to be delivered to these people. Now that can't be right. And in addition to that, even when water is turned on to the others, it doesn't reach the high points. So they will turn it on for a little bit. And if you're lucky, you may get water for 12 hours. So I always say, this is unbelievable. When I sit with my fellow colleagues, and all 14 of us occasionally meet, and they are from Port of Spain and so on, and I say, boy, you have any water issues there? They laugh, because when I speak this kind of language, it's alien to them. Imagine 612 houses, and of which there may be 2 or 3 families, do not have pipe-borne water. So when I say to WASA, I said, what are your investment plans for water in Penal-Debe? Is it that you are planning to dig new wells? Is it that you are planning to regulate the 3 providers differently? Because we get from the desal plant, we get from Caroni, and we get from Navet, and they service different parts of Penal-Debe. So when one is down, often 1/3 of the region does not have water. And I say, what are your investment plans? Are you, for example, going into the southern range and developing some catchment, some catch pits, some giant dams, if you wish, meaning a few million gallons of water? So they've asked me to show them, and I actually have someone gone out to map where you can put those kinds of dams. But they are not coming up with the answers. They don't have the solutions. And I'm saying something has to be wrong with that when you can't look very, very carefully to address the issue. And this has been going on for years. So when something called water harvesting, what we used to call long time catching water, is becoming fashionable in the literature, that is a reality with which people live. Now, what makes it worse is COVID. They are saying, clean yourselves regularly, bathe regularly, wash your clothes, clean your house, and so on.
We've got to close up now, Dr. Sammy. It's been good talking with you. I am not sure if there is intentional geographical or political discrimination, but I think that what happens is that the consequence of policy making makes for inequalities in the system, which we've got to address. And we have to find a way of dealing with this thing so that people feel they are fully citizens of this country, and so that the corporations which look after the local needs of people are properly financed and can do the work that is required of them, and that there's enough collaboration and integration between Rural Development, Ministry of Works, and local government. We will talk another time, and I will talk to other chairmen of cooperation so we get a sense of what's happening in local government. I want to thank you very much for your time and your contribution. And I'm glad at the end there you talked about your contribution to the solutions of the problems of your region that you govern. Thank you very much, Dr. Alan Sammy. It has been very good.
You're welcome. It has been my pleasure.
All right, then. This is Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari. This is MCTV, Multicultural TV. And we break now for the news with Andrew Chan.